This summer, William turns 18, a milestone for any teenage boy, but for William and for those who surround him, a moment of huge significance. His school days at Eton will come to an end, and the royal family's staff will begin to address him as Your Royal Highness. Then slowly but inexorably, he will have to begin shouldering the burden of the duties that will be his life's work. Despite being the product of the most public broken home in modern history, William has grown into an intelligent, confident and at times gregarious young man. As he emerges from the cocoon world of his public school and approaches a major turning point in his life, the questions abound about his friends, his family and his future. But above all, just who is the man behind the shy Spencer smile that's about to burst onto the world stage?
William looks uncannily like his mother, with the voice of his father. He's very tall and he's got that same golden aura, which is what makes teenage girls go weak at the knees. The day that William rides down the course at Ascot with the Queen in the carriages, people will scream. I know it's going to happen. He produces a kind of fever.
William is going to be mega. William is going to take the whole thing and turn it upside down. When William goes to visit Australia, the people will go crazy for him, like they did for his mother. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people turned out in the towns there to see Diana, and I think they'll turn out in equal numbers, maybe more, to see William.
He does have a bit of J.F. Kennedy Jr. in him. I think he does have a bit of Tom Cruise. He is an immensely attractive person, and on the global stage there is no bigger leading man.
He succeeds to the throne, perhaps without knowing it. He could wake up in the morning and be king, and he could be informed of this half an hour later or sometime later on, or he might be woken in the middle of the night to be told, "You are now king."
Born a Gemini on the cusp of Cancer on June the 21st, 1982, Prince William immediately captured the hearts of a nation. He was the son of the fairy tale marriage of Charles and Diana. We watched in rapture as he grew up before our eyes. If Desert Storm was the first television war, then Prince William was the first television royal. Like the Truman Show, every hair, tooth, step and outfit was captured by the world's media. Both the Prince and Princess of Wales brought a different style of upbringing to the young prince. While Charles introduced him to traditional royal pursuits, Diana was determined that her son, an eventual heir to the throne, would gain an insight and understanding of the world beyond palace walls.
Diana decided in the beginning that she wanted William to have as normal in life as possible. They always say this sort of rather cliched expression, normal. There is nothing normal about being royal. So she used to take him to shelters for the homeless. She actually took him to see AIDS patients. And so she wanted him to realise that not everyone was as privileged as he was. And her famous saying, not everyone drives a Range Rover and has houses in the country and speaks the Queen's English.
I think the children thoroughly enjoyed going to Thorpe Park on those dodgems, those fun fairs, Disney World. It was a tremendous thing for them to do. No other royal children have ever been able to do this. And Diana, who wanted them to be ordinary people, I mean, that was always ridiculous. They could never be ordinary. They're completely abnormal. But giving them the taste of that sort of life, the freedom and riding on sort of silly logs, going down water chutes and all that, was just tremendous.
But behind the public smiles lay private heartbreak. Charles and Diana's marriage was on the rocks, and the world watched with morbid fascination as they tore each other apart. In 1996, with William just 14 and newly started at Eton College, his parents were finally separated.
It is announced from Buckingham Palace that with regret, the Prince and Princess of Wales have decided to separate.
It brought to an end years of all-too-public fighting, manipulation and heartache, fanned by the tabloid headlines of Camillagate, Squidgygate and the Hewitt and Carling affairs. Both parents admitted to the world that they had committed adultery, and the monarchy lurched to its lowest point since the abdication crisis of the 1930s. The effect on William must have been devastating.
William asked me what had been going on, and could I answer his questions, of which I did. He said, was that the reason why our marriage had broken up? And I said, well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, and the pressure of the media was another factor. So the 2 together were very difficult. But although I still loved Papa, I couldn't live under the same roof as him, and likewise with him.
What effect do you think it had on Prince William?
Well, he's a child that's a deep thinker, and we won't know for a few years how it's gone in. But I put it in gently, without resentment or any anger. And William produced a box of chocolates and said, Mummy, I think you've been hurt. These are to make you smile again.
William has spent the last 5 years at Eton College, Britain's most distinguished public school. By all accounts, he's flourished, after having won the Sword of Honour as the best army cadet and an impressive array of academic qualifications, as well as membership of the elite pop.
Eton's been very successful for William. They have a saying that it can either make or break a boy, and it's certainly made William. It's given him a huge amount of independence. He's been voted into POP, which is an elite body within the school, voted in by the other boys, which has various privileges. And he's won the Sword of Honour, he's in the swimming team, he's head of the Agricultural Society. I mean, he's really kind of done his bit at Eton, and it's worked very well for him.
William's daily life at Eton is actually quite modest. I would think that the average person may think that he has a butler and is waited on hand and foot and lives in a mansion. In fact, he has a small room in Manor House, which is a boarding house shared by other boys, including Prince Harry. And next door to his small room is the detective's room. He is shadowed by a detective around the clock. They work 24-hour shifts, 7 days a week. And he follows the normal school curriculum, the normal school day. He's treated like any other boy. If he excels, he's recognised for it. If he falls down, then he's picked up. Sport is a very important part of his life at Eton. He likes rugby in particular and soccer. And he also likes swimming.
It is tough. I mean, it is not tough like Gordonston, where Prince Charles went. That was tough in a different way. That was outward bound tough. But it is very manipulative. It is very, very progressive. But it's a tough world. And perhaps best exemplified by the remark that people say that, that anyone who's ever been to a public school finds themselves in prison will feel perfectly at home and will be able to cope extremely well.
My father always said to me that the best thing probably about Eton is the women you're going to meet. And I have to say that was one of the things that he was absolutely right about. The joy of being at Eton is you do get the pick of the bunch, really. And, there's Heathfields and St Mary's Ascot and St Mary's, all those places that obviously you socialise in the holidays with them, etc. And, God, the girls were fantastic and the opportunities were endless. And, I think any red-blooded male would take full advantage of all that. I know I did.
In the summer of 1997, Diana took William and Harry on vacation to the Saint-Tropez home of millionaire Harrods owner Mohammed Al Fayed and his son Dodi. By all accounts, they enjoyed a blissful few weeks, despite the ever-present paparazzi. It was soon alleged that Diana and Dodi were having an affair, and then, with alarming alacrity, rumours flew of a true romance and even a possible engagement. The Daily Mirror royal correspondent James Whittaker followed them all summer.
Everywhere he went on holiday, I too was there, and of course, including that last fateful holiday when they were all guests of Mohammed Al Fayed, the owner of Harrods, down in Saint-Tropez. Despite what has been said, there was no romance between Diana and Dodi in the 10 days that the two boys were with Mohammed Al Fayed at the villa. He wasn't her lover while they were on holiday. It didn't happen. There was no consummation of their affair until after that holiday. But how they viewed Dodi, William and Harry, was, of course, as an extremely generous, benevolent uncle who would supply them with more or less anything they wanted.
As the two princes returned to Britain to be with their father, Diana went on to Paris with Dodi Fayed. On August the 30th, 1997, they went to the Ritz Hotel to have a late dinner, but besieged by paparazzi, they left early by a side door to make a quick exit to Dodi's apartment.
We have a flash here from the Press Association Newswire saying that Diana, Princess of Wales, has died in a car crash in Paris. The French Interior Minister Jean-Pierre Chevènement has confirmed that the Princess of Wales is dead.
The royal family were on holiday in Balmoral in Scotland. Prince Charles woke William in the early hours of Monday morning to tell him the news that every child dreads. While most of the world shared an unprecedented and very public outpouring of grief, William and the rest of his family found solace in the remoteness of the Balmoral estate. It's here that he and his brother found the strength to face the public and the funeral arrangements that lay ahead.
William handled himself extremely well because he was allowed time to be alone. The crowds in London were saying, the royal family must come to London, but the whole point of them staying in Scotland was not to be hidden away, was because the Queen wanted to be with the people that mattered the most, which actually were the two boys. And they wanted their grandmother and their grandfather with them, and that's why they stayed there. I think when we saw the photographs of William looking at the flowers outside Kensington Palace, you felt that this boy is very mature, and perhaps that was his moment of coming of age. Not later. He seemed to handle it extremely well, but we will never be able to put ourselves inside his head and know exactly what he was feeling. But to the outside world, he behaved in a truly dignified manner. There were no tears, not publicly. Prince Charles said, I think a couple of weeks later, how very proud he was of William and Harry and how well they'd handled a very difficult situation.
Although the palace have been very protective of the prince, the Press Association court correspondent Peter Archer was granted William's first ever interview in 1998 on his 16th birthday.
Well, it was a very delicate process, actually, and throughout, William's advisors were very protective of him. I was asked to submit a list of written questions, and while William was studying those and deciding which he would answer, not all of them, and what answers he would give, I was also given access over a few days to a royal archive on William's early life, which brought out quite a few interesting details. For someone who's been in a goldfish bowl, there were still things that we didn't know about him, and so there were some interesting little tidbits in there as well. We learned about his black Labrador dog called Widgeon, who he's very fond of. We learned that he likes, like most teenagers, pop music and techno music in particular then. We also learned that he's developing diplomatic skills early on because he wouldn't name his favourite pop group at the time. Just as now he's being a little bit reticent about saying which university he favours. He doesn't. He feels that if he favours one, then a lot of others are going to be disappointed or even, offended. We learned about his sporting likes. I mean, he's a very sporty person. He's tall, obviously. You can't ignore him. He's over 6 foot. As well as having Diana's good looks, he's also has Charles's physique, and he is a good swimmer. We learned that he likes water polo. Nobody knew about that. He likes rugby, football, and he's maintained a liking for tennis, something which he did with his mother.
In character, I think he has the compassion of his mother mixed with the sort of understanding of his father. So, I mean, hopefully that balance remains. Well, he's very sensitive. He's very sensitive as a character. Diana told me, because my daughter and Prince William were born on the same day, so that was a really good way to sort of get into it. And we were discussing them both being born under the same star sign, and she said, "Oh, William's the sensitive one," and he cares very deeply about things.
Every time I see him, it reminds me of her. The same colouring, the way he blushes when you speak to him, the way he puts his head down, the way he's conscious of his height. And every time I see him, and for the rest of my life, every time I see him, it will just remind me of Diana. It's just, it's like looking at her. I think no way he looks like the Windsors. His ears are too small anyway.
I think he hasn't yet come to terms with who he is. He is second in line to the throne. He's had a very traumatic childhood, but he still has, in my opinion, to come to terms with living in the public eye. And he can be shy. He can hang his head in public. He doesn't like the cameras. In particular, he told me that he doesn't like the adulation he's getting, particularly from teenage girls who see him as a pin-up.
In 1998, this pin-up went to Vancouver in Canada with Charles and Harry. Amid the crowds, the chaos and hysteria, Willsmania was born.
Well, when William appeared in Vancouver, these teenage girls went completely mad and screamed and shouted at William, and they tried to touch him and tried to kiss him. And when he later gave a print interview, he said that one of the things he found very, very difficult to deal with was this adulation. Why me? Just because I'm the son of Charles and Diana. It's very difficult for a young person to understand why they should be screaming at him, because what's he ever done?
You see the girls, you thought Leonardo DiCaprio had walked down the street. The girls were screaming hysterical like pop stars, treatment pop stars get. That's going to happen a lot.
I love him, and he said hi, and he shook my hand.
He touched my hand. I gave him flowers, and he shook my hand.
The question every reporter and editor wants to know is, does William have a girlfriend? He's been linked to the pop star Britney Spears.
I suppose it was good publicity for Britney to be associated with Prince William, and she emailed him, and somebody emailed her back. William didn't email her back, but one of his advisors at St James's Palace emailed her back, and I think Britney then sent him some CDs, which I think William passed on to Harry. She hasn't met William yet, and I understand, I know he likes the look of Britney, but doesn't really like the sound of her music.
With his physical and material attributes making him one of the world's greatest catches, the British press have been in overdrive to find the perfect mate for William.
He's too young for us, but yeah, he's pretty cute. Because good figure, he smiles, happy.
I think he's very attractive, yeah, and a real gentleman also.
I think he is so gorgeous. I think he is, I don't know much about him, but he's definitely a good poster boy.
He's a pretty good looking guy.
He's so cute, he's sweet.
We love you!
We love you, William!
Well, if William does have a girlfriend, he's been very circumspect about it and kept it well hidden. But he does get very annoyed and upset, as anyone would, actually, especially somebody young, of being linked to women he's never met. One was Richard Branson's daughter, Holly Branson. He'd never met her. And another one is Isabella Cawthorpe, who's the daughter of a friend of mine. Beautiful girl, but she's never met William. Never met him.
William has a close, tight-knit circle of friends, drawn from his school, his family and his father's friends.
He's quite close to Freddie Windsor and Ella, his sister, who's gorgeous. And he used to go to music classes with Ella. He's very close to Peter Phillips, Princess Anne's son. Really, really likes him. And he's quite close to other members of his family. But of course, his main backbone of friends is A, Camilla Parker Bowles' son, Tom, and B, his own school friends, and people like Edward Van Cutsum, who is the friends of his father's friends. So there's the local friends, the school friends, and Camilla's children.
Last year, William paid a surprise visit to the Cartier International Polo Tournament at Smith's Lawn in Windsor. He quickly stole the show.
Well, William was the guest of honour at the Cartier Polo. None of us knew he was going to be there. There we were in the Cartier tent, and suddenly there's this sort of amazing-looking guy across, and it was Prince William. And of course, he was surrounded by beautiful young things, some of whom he gave the ultimate invitation to. Would you like to come on a yacht with me next week? I mean, how many kids can actually say that? So he threw his father's office into a bit of disarray, because William, instead of inviting one girl, had invited 5 or 6 girls. And then rang them up himself and said, come along. So nobody knew what was going on.
In London, William is a thoroughly modern royal. He keeps an apartment at St James's Palace. He has his shirts handmade at Turnbull and Asser in Jermyn Street, just like his father, and has his suits handmade at Anderson and Shepherd. He eats at restaurants such as the Mirabelle, Nemo's and Foxtrot Oscar. And at night, he's been spotted clubbing at the fashionable K-Bar and Cabaret. But it was at Le Palais nightclub back in 1996 that William's party-going first hit the headlines. The man behind the event was the teen party king, Justin Eton.
We didn't actually know for sure that Prince William was coming. We knew that we had someone fairly important coming along, especially when the bomb squad and also sniffer dogs came around the venue, and as we were preparing for the big night, all this commotion was going on, and it doesn't normally happen when we organise an event. We arrived with a few friends, came at about 9:30, 10 o'clock, and partied away until the early hours of the morning. It's like a nightclub, even like a senior prom as such, except there's no alcohol at any of the parties, and we have top live bands on stage and all sorts of entertainments, and they have a crazy night. We even have a foam machine that sprays like bubble bath foam all over the place. It's full of surprises. But there's no wild sex orgy, Shane, and there's no wild kissing party girls. Well, maybe a few wild kissing party girls, but there were quite a few girls who instantly knew exactly who he was, and I think fancied themselves as being the new little princess as such. But like any of the other teenagers there, you know, he danced with a few of them and chatted, and was just like any other teenager. The whole kiss and tell syndrome of did he kiss someone and did he not kiss someone was blown all out of proportion. I think the only person that knows that is him, and I think you'll have to ask him.
With drug use so widespread amongst the young aristocrats of today, it's been alleged that many of William's close friends regularly take cocaine. Both Tom Parker Bowles and Lord Frederick Windsor have been caught up in drug scandals. William's friends are young, they're free, and they have the time and the money to party for England.
There is no evidence that he's taken anything, but he is surrounded by people who take cocaine almost as a matter of course, and various other drugs. A lot of his friends have actually been caught or have admitted that they've taken them. And naturally, any parent is concerned that their children are in that sort of circle where this goes on.
Well, William's got a very sensible head on his shoulders, and he's very aware that if he ever dabbled in drugs, it would probably get out, because it would be too much of a temptation for somebody not to say something. So he's steered away from it, although he mixes with a fast-moving crowd, and they all dabble in drugs. I mean, it sounds ridiculous to say this, but kids of that age, of a certain background, almost the more privileged they are, the more access they seem to have.
Wake up and smell the coffee. You know, people in the aristocracy take drugs. You know, people on the club scene in London, you know, in that world of nightclubbing and you know, famous nightclubs and famous restaurant places, you know, there's a huge amount of coke abuse, there's a huge amount of drug abuse. And it's very, very difficult for people to, at the same time, be hip and be socially acceptable in that scene, you know, and to stay out of the other opportunities that are there to partake in illegal situations. And as far as I think, you know, Prince William has a difficult job on his hands to stay away from that. Not him taking it, but at the same time, the friends around him perhaps leading him astray.
But if it did get out, and if he were caught, yes, it would go in the papers. There's no question it would.
One of the greatest challenges facing William is his handling of the media. Following the backlash after Diana's death, the press agreed to a moratorium on coverage and to leave William and Harry alone while they were at Eton.
Fleet Street editors did respect this. You got the odd skirmish of paparazzi who were working for Continental magazines on the grounds that Fleet Street papers wouldn't buy the photos. I mean, they were itching to do so, but they wouldn't. But there were still photographers working there because the Continental magazine is not their prints. Why would they care if they were upsetting anybody?
I don't see the press being able to leave him alone, and nor does Prince Charles, actually. I mean, Prince Charles and I had a long chat about it, and of course he worries terribly about everything. But one of his worries was that once William had left school, that he would be a target of certainly, if not the British press, certainly the European press, which he is anyway. There's loads of photographs that never get published here, that you see in European magazines of William playing football, William doing this, William boating in Cornwall. But we don't see them here because of the Press Complaints Commission.
Well, Prince William doesn't like the media. He just hates it, and he hates anything to do with it. And that's been borne out by statements from Diana. I mean, we were in the south of France when Diana was on holiday with William a couple of weeks before she died. And she said, you know, you're driving William mad. You know, William will become a basket case the way you're going. And, you know, he just hates it.
He knows that he is forever going to be scrutinised and sought out by camera people. So his guard is very rarely down. He has learnt just how powerful camera lenses can be and how they can get at him. So like his mother, he doesn't relax too often.
I don't think William will mind doing his public role. I think if we start crowding him now, if we start droves of paparazzi descending on him, I think it almost could certainly walk away from the job and say, thank you, but I just don't want anything to do with it. And there's nothing they could do to stop him. He just would probably say, find someone else.
The value of Prince William photographs is set to skyrocket, and with this demand coupled with the high rewards, it's hard to see how William won't be hounded.
The appetite from the public, it's not just from the media who are exciting the public, from the public themselves, they want to know about this chap. Again, you see, as happened with Diana, he is a very beautiful person. Nobody doubts that he will have attractive girlfriends who are fascinating and interesting. And in this still fairly grim world that goes on around us, it's lightweight stuff, but it's what people want to see. When the chips are down, I think that Fleet Street and other media organisations will want to go in and get what they can.
If William was in a park, sitting down having a picnic with a girl, and it was obvious that they were more than just friends, I'd say those pictures would probably generate $1 million if they were exclusive at this moment. If it was in swimsuits in Saint-Tropez, obviously a lot more. And if the girl was topless, well, you can name your figure.
Away from the bright lights of London and their temptations, William reverts to the more traditional royal pursuits of hunting, shooting and riding horses. He rides regularly with the Beaufort Hunt, despite the growing outcry against fox hunting.
William loves shooting. I think Diana used to call them the killer whales. She said whenever she used to ring up and try and find out where her kids were when they were up at Balmoral, they were always out shooting something. And she actually didn't mind this. I mean, it's what it's all about, being royal. It's kind of culling the animals on the estates. And I think there's a kind of freedom that they get from Scotland, which William really loves. He's never happier. This is what Diana told me, they're never happier than when he's out with his dog and a gun. But she did warn him, be very careful about being photographed because people don't like it.
Prince William is slowly being groomed into his public role and destiny. But unlike his father, he is being given room to find his own feet, make his own mistakes and establish his own identity. Since the death of the Princess of Wales, Prince Charles has become much closer to both boys and is said to be the guiding hand and support behind William.
He is a continual practical joker. He's always playing jokes on them, always sending them up. They're always sending him up. I've seen them just off camera in a few brief moments, you know, where they sort of grab each other as father and son do, and they have a little wrestle together. And I've seen them out cycling together, and they just adore each other. And you know, Prince Charles runs his whole diary around the available spare time that he can have with his boys. When his boys are off school, Prince Charles is there with them. And if there's a chance they can have a holiday together, they do.
The Queen, too, is a great influence on William. Whilst at Eton, he's been paying regular visits to see her at Windsor Castle. Over tea in the oak drawing room, it's understood that she's tutoring the young prince on the demands and functions of the role that he will one day inherit.
It's a royal tradition that the older generation hands down kind of wisdom to the younger generation, and the Queen will see Prince William, and very informally, over tea, and tell him about who she's met during the week, what she thinks about them, and then she'll ask him about his week. And it's a kind of way of imparting information to him without doing it in too formal a way. They joke together. They're both excellent mimics, and they sort of laugh together and joke together. And again, there's a sort of huge amount of respect. The thing about royal children is they're all incredibly polite and incredibly well brought up. You think of the teams of nannies that are being employed to look after them. So he has a great respect for people older than himself, and I think that's reflected in his relationship with his grandparents.
To be King of England is a job with huge responsibilities. I mean, there will be several hundred engagements every year, public engagements. Some of these things will be foreign tours, which are always very, very exhausting. I mean, very, very long days where you take in about 6 or 7 different events, often in very, very hot climates. Behind the scenes, it is a job which never, never stops. The sovereign is the one person in England who never has a day's holiday, because the red boxes pursue the sovereign every single day wherever the sovereign is. So that the Queen, for example, even if she's at Balmoral, the first thing that she will do in the morning is to go through her boxes. Even if she's sort of living in what you might call a holiday atmosphere, she will have certain things to attend to. There will be people asking her questions. There will be people asking permission. It may be something very important. It may be something to do with perhaps just lending a picture to a gallery in another country, which needs her sanction. There will be things which will come from not only her own government for her to read and digest. There will be things which will come to her from Commonwealth governments, because she is Queen of Australia, New Zealand, and various other places. All these things will happen relentlessly, and he will inherit all that. He will find that when he becomes king, his day will be mapped out day by day, week by week, month by month, and literally years ahead.
The debate over abdication and succession rages on. Will the Queen abdicate and retire when the Queen Mother dies? Will Charles then abdicate in favour of William? It's said that in a televised debate on the future of the monarchy in 1996, William phoned in his vote of no on Charles being bypassed in favour of William for king.
There is no way this is going to happen. Prince Charles will succeed to the throne on the death of his mother, the Queen, who will not be abdicating. It'll just won't happen. She was anointed with holy oil and took the vow that she would reign until she died. It was a religious oath. That is what will happen. Then Prince Charles will come to the throne. He will live and he will reign until he dies. Then it will be William's turn. And however attractive it might be to people, and I admit there are a number who think that it's a good idea, because A, he is a good-looking guy and he's young and fresh. He's untainted at the moment.
I've never thought Charles would abdicate, because that's not the way our constitution is. I mean, it's not a job like being a taxi driver. You can't just say, I don't want to do this job anymore. He is, it's hereditary monarchy, and Charles is the next in line.
The abdication crisis with Wallis Simpson is one of the blackest periods of constitutional or royal history in Britain, and it's still quite fresh in their memories, and they wouldn't want to repeat that again.
And yet it is possible that such a crisis will be repeated.
There could, I suppose, arise a situation where he would prefer to retreat into private life with Mrs. Parker Bowles, and I think, from the constitutional point of view, that would, in a sense, have to happen after he'd become king. I suppose that he could announce his intention. He could say, I wish to marry Mrs. Parker Bowles, and I wish to retreat into private life. I suppose it would be technically possible for him to renounce his right of succession to the throne and marry Mrs. Parker Bowles, in which case, of course, Prince William would instantly and automatically become heir to the throne.
I think Camilla Parker Bowles has behaved very cleverly, because she hasn't tried to be a substitute mother. She hasn't filled Diana's shoes. She will not give William advice unless he wants it. And as far as he's concerned, she's great, because she keeps his father happy and therefore keeps his father off his back. He requested that Camilla go on last summer's trip on the yacht, and he says, you know, Papa, why don't you ask Camilla? I'm delighted to have her around.
The picture I really like, more than anything, is him linking arms with Camilla, Camilla linking arms with Charles, and Charles linking arms with Harry, coming out of a church after the Prince and Camilla get married. I think I'd like that.
I still don't know if Charles and Camilla will get married. I think that the feeling is that perhaps eventually they will, rather than continue to play a sort of cat and mouse game. I think probably a good 50% of his friends come from broken homes or have stepmothers or fathers. I don't think he'd mind them at all.
This spring, in a rare public outing, William went skiing with his father and brother to the Austrian ski resort of Klosters. At the official press call, we saw a relaxed and confident William, a far cry from the awkward and shy teenager of years gone by.
My arms aren't long enough to get around there. Oh, yes, very nice. I'm not very viewer. Putting my hand Don't promise that.
Okay, 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's good fun, nice.
That's fine.
It'll be interesting.
What's the nightlife like in process? Okay. Right.
You don't ask. Wouldn't know.
Well done.
Official Secrets Act.
And what of the future for HRH Prince William? After a year of travelling, he will certainly go to university. Edinburgh's been mentioned, and so has Georgetown in the United States. But the smart money seems to be on Cambridge, where both Charles and Edward went, followed by a few years in the Welsh Guards, a solid, traditional foundation for a king.
Yeah, good result. The FA Cup's definitely secure with Villa.
It was once said some years ago that Prince William's chapter of the British monarchy might well be a closing one. It's true that the monarchy he will inherit will be far leaner than today. He once asked his parents, do we really need so many palaces? But it will be King William V and not his father who will shape the monarchy into the next century. After the Anni Horribili of the 90s, William is a golden ray of hope. His fame and popularity with a new generation of royal watchers will ensure that the royal soap opera will continue well into the new millennium.
William will, if and when he becomes king, which hopefully he will be very glamorous and will be very forward-thinking. I think he feels that there's far too many trappings and far too much pomp and circumstances surrounding royalty. Not all of us agree with, some of us think that that's a good thing, but I think William feels there's too many palaces, and he will be more in contact with the people.
I have no doubt at all he will slip off the rails from time to time. It seems absolutely inevitable. Some pretty women will cause him a problem. He may love it, but it'll get him in the papers, it'll cause scandal.
Yes, he does have to be careful not to become the Playboy Prince, because he's probably got a long wait before he's king, and he has to find a role for himself. This is something which his father struggled with for a long time. That must be quite difficult, you know, if you haven't got to go out and earn a living, if you haven't got to worry about paying the bills, and, you know, you've got a blank canvas. What do you fill it with?
Diana told me that on several occasions William sort of fussed, this burden of, me being king, and everyone goes on about it. And Harry says, if you don't want to be king, I will.
William will be bigger than Diana, and I think Diana, looking down on him, will be his proudest mother in the world. She will look and she will say, great, you're doing great. I think she'll always be in his mind. I think she was a huge influence on his life. But I think we'll be the beneficiaries of that. I think we'll see a great prince and hopefully a great king one day.
Thank you.